What's the most awkward third wheel experience you've ever had? I've always been into photography as a hobby, nothing serious, just for fun, and I saved up to go on this 5-day wildlife photography expedition in Yellowstone. It was one of those guided small group things where they take you to remote spots to photograph wolves, bears, and other wildlife at dawn dusk. The first day, everyone meets up at this lodge for orientation. There were about 15 people total, split into smaller groups based on what areas we wanted to focus on. I got paired with this couple, Natalie and Ricardo, both early 30s, for the predator photography track. They seemed super normal at first, been together for like 4 years, lived together, both into photography. We head out on day 2 to our first shooting location, a 2-hour drive followed by a mile hike to this ridge overlooking a valley where wolves had been spotted. The guide sets us up with our equipment, and TBH, the first few hours were actually amazing. We got some decent shots of a wolf pack in the distance, and the conversation was flowing fine. But then during lunch, things got weird. Natalie started asking me super personal questions about my dating life. Like, not just, are you seeing anyone, but detailed questions about my relationship history, what I look for in partners, etc. Ricardo kept interrupting her with these passive-aggressive comments that clearly had some history behind them. I tried changing the subject, but they were not letting it go. That evening at camp, we were staying in these little 2-person tents. I realized they had set up their tent right next to mine. Like, literally 2 feet away when there was plenty of space. I could hear everything. And OMG, they started having this intense whisper argument about me? I heard my name mentioned multiple times, but couldn't make out exactly what they were saying. Day 3 gets worse. We're tracking this bear family through some meadows, and Natalie starts walking next to me, linking her arm with mine. She's telling me how she feels like we have this connection, and how she rarely meets women she can truly be herself around. Meanwhile, Ricardo is trailing behind, looking so pissed. During our lunch break, Ricardo suddenly sits between us and starts talking about how they've been exploring new dynamics in their relationship and keeps giving me these looks that made me so uncomfortable I almost called the guide over. But I didn't want to make a scene since we still had days left. That night there was a campfire with the whole group, and I tried hanging with other people, but they kept finding ways to sit on either side of me. At one point, Natalie put her hand on my knee while Ricardo was telling this story about their adventures, with very obvious innuendos. I literally got up and pretended I needed to use the bathroom and stayed there for like 20 minutes. Day 4. We're hiking to this remote waterfall where bears often fish. It's just the 3 of us because the guide had to help someone else with camera issues. We're like halfway there when they start having this full-on fight about the plan and scaring her off, and I'm just power walking ahead pretending I can't hear. We finally reach the waterfall, and I'm setting up my tripod when Natalie comes over and straight up tells me that they've been having relationship problems and they think I could help them reconnect. I'm like, what? And she clarifies that they're looking for someone to join them, and they've been watching me since day 1 and think I'd be perfect. I'm frozen trying to process this when Ricardo walks over and puts his hand on my shoulder saying they've never done this before, but they've discussed it extensively, and they both agree I'm the one. I'm looking around for anyone else, but we're completely alone in the wilderness. I mumble something about needing space and start packing up my gear ASAP. Ricardo gets all defensive saying I'm overreacting and they were just asking and I should be flattered. The most awkward part? We still had a full day left and a 2-hour hike back to camp. They kept switching between apologizing, trying to convince me I was missing out, and arguing with each other about approach. I literally spent the entire hike back staring at the ground and walking as fast as physically possible. When we finally got back to camp, I immediately went to the guide and made up some emergency about needing to get back to the lodge. He must have sensed something was wrong because he arranged for me to join another group for the last day. But TBH, the absolute worst part wasn't even the proposition. It was when I was waiting for my ride back and overheard them arguing. Turns out they weren't even a real couple. They were cousins who had been planning this whole trip as a way to find a third for some guy named Dylan, who was supposedly Natalie's actual boyfriend waiting back at home. They'd done this